Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul, right here at selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful repeat guest is Elizabeth Power. We're going to take you on flight today. We're going to lift your spirits up, unleashing our spiritual energy, which we both desperately needed today on this Monday morning, although you're going to be listening to it next Tuesday. We really needed to kind of step into our spirits today and let it take flight, because there's something heavy going on the planet today, and sometimes it can pull you down, and we need to find ways to lift ourselves up. The power of spirituality has always been within us. To access it, we have to let go of our human crisis state, which I invite you to go back to Elizabeth's last show, where we do talk about the human crisis state. We live too often in that state, and it's very, very easy to get caught up in it and not release ourselves from it. So when we ignite that spirit from within, we learn so much more about ourselves and our divine connection to source, God, spirit, source, energy, whatever you wish to call it. So we're going to take flight today and just let that spiritual liberation take us where it needs to go. Elizabeth Power is a MED, an international authority on trauma-informed care, change and resilience. She's also an adjusting instructor at the Psychiatry of Georgetown University Medical Center and a veteran adult educator. Her new book, Healer, Reducing Crisis, is the first in 5-book series that reduces the time, trauma, and cost of healing from overwhelming events. Her clients include a National Center for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, a National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and many more. And a frequent speaker and trainer, Elizabeth's target is to reach ways to focus our skills over sickness. And most certainly there's something going on out there today, something traumatic, and I don't know what it is, but let's shift it to a positive energy. Welcome, my darling.
Thank you, dear. It's so good to be with you. I swear, I think that the cosmic elephant just took a big dump on the planet.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
stinky, it's
hard.
heavy, yeah.
This morning I started out, I woke up crying like a rat eating
Mm,
onions. And
mm,
it's like, what was going on?
yeah.
I did get some bad news last week, but I don't think it wasn't unexpected. So, and it has been like that all day. And everyone I've talked to has just been trying to get their eyes and their hearts up off the
Yes.
floor or out of the grave or out of the rut or out of the trenches they've been in. Mm.
Mm. Well, just to let you know, folks, because we do these shows ahead of time, this is the 2nd of August. By the time you hear this, it will be the 9th of August. And hopefully by then, the shift has happened. But no matter whether it's then or now, you're going to get those dumps now and again. And this is how you get out of them.
Oh,
Shovel, shovel,
you're so
shovel.
optimistic. You are so optimistic, or at least how you tolerate the discomfort while they pass of their own accord.
Right. Well, but that's sometimes you just have to, right? I think
Yeah.
sometimes this heaviness comes over us, and this is too big for any one person to lift. So what do I need to do for myself? And sometimes it's like, this is the time to be reclusive. Do
Mm-hmm.
something that warms your heart and your soul. What is it that feeds you? Go into your inner space, because you cannot face what's out there on your own. And maybe you can gather the other sources and forces to do so with you, but sometimes it's just retreat and re-energize, wait for it to pass, or at least diminish enough for you to emerge from it.
Now, wait a minute. I want to talk about this retreat thing. Now, I freely confess, we all know because the time I open my mouth, I'm from the rural, well, I'm from the South, rural or not, but I am from the rural South. And I just have to tell you that retreat is what we do when the treat didn't take the first time.
Ah, okay, all right,
If
different
you treat
meanings.
something and it doesn't take you, and when you mistreat it, that's when you apply the wrong thing to it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So treat, retreat, and mistreat all take on a whole new
Mm,
perspective.
yes,
Maybe what we need to do is compost.
yes, yes, that's the Well, it may be stinky and smelly, but my God, is it productive?
Yes, it is. And the thing I have found, not that I enjoy being in it, is that when that kind of it's a genuine, it's an angst, it's a despair. It really is smelly and stinky and sloppy. And I believe the elephant might have had a little GI problem in the process. But when it ends up on us, it's either freak out or freak in, or say, well, let's see what I can do with this. We had a saying where I grew up that was, the more you pat a cow pile, the worse it stinks, but the faster it turns into compost.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we need to pat on it a little bit and see what it's all about. But I have to say this, I still come back to some of the same things, that moving inward, the retreat, the sense that you were
Mm-hmm.
using. When we're willing to turn inward, what we find is what becomes interesting next. Are we in there gnawing on our own arm like a coyote in a trap?
Right.
Are we in there saying the things to us that we would say to other people? We only get one aware shot at the conversations we have in our head.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing with it? Are we talking to ourselves like the beloved soul in the universe that we are? And if we are, and those horrifying, difficult feelings keep coming up, is it because we've reached our set point and the resistance is rising because we're about to have a breakthrough?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just plain that the planets are wacky? I think the planets are wacky. What do you think?
Well, right now, I think definitely planet is out of whack, and that it's a two-step.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes a couple of steps back, to do the one forward is like, no, you took the wrong step. We've got to take you back a couple of steps,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. Oh, sorry. That was just a little detour.
Yes, exactly. You
We
put the
missed a
wrong
step.
foot forward, and I'm going to take you back a couple of steps. It's rather like when you watch the Olympics. They're diving off the board, or they're doing a run, and if they're just slightly out of whack, they're not going to get the performance they need. And I think right now it's like, hang on, universe. You're just out of step. Let's take you back. Let's realign you. Now step forward in the right light, in the right energy.
Mhm. Yes, and I want to talk about the Olympics for just a second, because I think that we are, the attributions that we're making about Simone Biles's
Mm,
choice to drop out are terrifyingly
yes.
shameful.
Mm,
And the reason I say that is this: there are a lot of, I have observed that there are a good number of men who look like me who are saying she's a chicken and she should just suck it up and keep going, or she's a coward, or she's a quitter. And I want to point out a couple of things. Did they say the same thing to the guy who put his F-14 nose down in a neighborhood near mine a few years ago, and he had the same thing happen to him? He got
mm,
the spatial twisties.
right. Yes.
I doubt they would have. And
Yeah.
would they said it to her if she'd been a white woman? They may not have.
Mm,
They said it to her. And here's the thing: we all get the trauma twisties.
yes.
That's a new hashtag I've just popped up with.
Hmm.
And the trauma twisties are great signs of when spiritually we're being challenged by our own lives.
Hmm.
When our brain and our body remember things that have happened to us. And even though may only be an anniversary, or it may be a self doubt, and you got to remember that Simone Biles was the only survivor of Nassers to show up to be at the Olympics.
Yeah.
She was the only one after all that. And the day that she chose to stop was the day that a particular anniversary had occurred.
Yes.
If you don't like the expense that you're incurring in watching the Olympics, and I'm saying this as a spiritual challenge, stop traumatizing people. Stop putting
Yes.
people in such states of injury that they can't cope and function.
Right. And
What a
this it's
travesty.
also this huge expectation we put on people. Can we please remember they are human first? Right.
Yes,
They're
yes,
not they're
yes.
not robots, they're not out there as machines, they're humans first. They go through the same emotions we do. They've pushed themselves to absolute limits. And in fact, quite honestly, even just being at the Olympics right now, under the circumstances, is already incredibly courageous in a country
Oh,
that's
yes,
running rampant with COVID.
yes,
And how many have got there, got COVID, only to find their dreams dashed before they can even do anything? So, my applause is to any single one of them that are out there,
yes,
no matter what they're doing. But to shame anyone for either being too good or for their emotional state getting in the way of something, I think shame on them. Shame on them. And let me see
So
you do a
don't
few
we
of
sound
those,
don't we
bars.
sound like the non-judgmental lot we really are?
It's the kettle calling the black, right? But the thing is, if you think you can do better, step up. But
Honey, most
to
of the
put
people
people
are there,
down,
and most of them wouldn't even put on a mask in Walmart.
hmm
But they think they know so much more about what she's doing and how she does
yeah,
it and who she is that she should go out there and literally risk her life. The guy that drove the jet fighter pilot nose down here, he didn't make it.
right.
There are a number of athletes who haven't made it. There are a number of people who know better and go on and do it anyway because they're supposed to please somebody.
Right. And that is not the reason to do it. Imagine if she was off kilter and landed on her neck, right? Instead of her feet or off
That's the
balance,
point.
and there it is, either
Then
crippled
she'd die
or
a
dead.
martyr.
Oh,
She'd die
right.
a martyr.
Right. And then they'll probably criticize her for that as well. It's just there's no pleasing certain people. And I think actually that is a point I want to bring up.
Yes.
I don't know if it's the energy that's out there right now, but it seems to me people are on the bitch wagon. I put this out the
they
other day that I am so tired of everybody bitching about everything, and it's one thing after the other, one thing after the other. That nobody seems to be satisfied with anything or grateful for anything, and it's all bitch, 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 bitch. And it's like, well, if you're so miserable about your life, go and do something about it that is not imposing your bitching on others. This is an internal job you've got going on here. This is a turmoil within yourself. You need to go in and heal that and stop doing the elephant dump on everyone else because we're getting tired of it. We're getting tired of all of that angst out
Well,
there.
so instead of being the chihuahua whizzing on the fire hydrant, let me talk about some very cool things that are happening.
Please.
First of all, if y'all have been out and looked at my Facebook page, you will see that I have been picking beans and cooking beans.
Yes.
Let me tell you about these hallowed beans. These bean vines are full runners, and they would run about 150 miles if I'd let them, I think. But these beans are beans that were given to me by my stepfather that he got from his mother. So they're 3 generation beans,
Wow.
and they are so beautiful and so lush that it's not even funny. And I have had the best time picking them and stringing them and shelling them and preparing them and cooking them and then freezing them. It's been really grounding to get my feet back in that earth.
hmm
And the other thing that I'm really grateful for, I got given a tomato this weekend, and this is going to sound so funny, but it's that time of year where I live where there's a holy grail that you're always looking for. It's
Mm.
the M&M sandwich. It's mayonnaise and maters on stinky white bread that you can put fingerprints in, and you have to lean over the sink because it's going to run down your arms. My tomatoes have not been M&M worthy this year. They just don't taste right. So a friend of mine brought me a tomato that her dad grew. She can't eat tomatoes. Her dad is like 92 years old.
hmm
This was a killer tomato. And I'm going, what is it? I just need 20 plus years more practice at this. But oh, was it good? It was so big that a slice covered the entire slice of cheap bread.
hmm
It will probably gum up my guts or make me grow tomato plants or something like that. But that
It
is
was
a
worth
moment.
it.
My mouth's watering. Another very cool thing that's happened this week in terms of installing the good, and that's a technique everybody can do, no matter how bitchy you happen to be. You think about something good that happened
Yeah.
and only spend 20 seconds focusing on it.
Yes.
So my friends posted on Facebook this morning that the storm that's just passed through put a branch on their roof and through their dining room. And it
Not
was
through
really
their bedroom,
interesting,
fortunately.
thankfully, and
Yes.
everybody was safe, and
Mm.
it's an inconvenience. But it was so fascinating because I said, have you seen the home a mile north of yours that got bisected by a tree?
Mm.
And gratefully no one was hurt there. So we had these big storms here in Nashville this weekend, and although there's been some property damage, no lives were lost,
Which
and
is a
that's really
blessing.
good.
Yeah.
And we got rain, and I'm wishing for rain for my colleagues on the West Coast
Oh my God, are
and in
we
the
desperate
Pacific
for rain
Northwest.
right now? 300 fires going, and the smoke is just literally traveling everywhere, and we're desperate for rain. And they keep saying rain 50%, and it's like cat's piss. It's nothing. It's not touching the
I don't
ground.
think I'd insult my cat's piss that way. I know those. Last week it rained in my front yard, but not in my backyard. That's how specific it was. And I'm like,
Wow.
but this is nuts. I'm standing in the sun and I'm like, this is just nuts, you know. And I'm thinking, okay, so what's up with that, Cosmos? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you using a big sieve or something?
Yes.
But and then
So
you've
how
got
long
the
have?
other side of it, you have the floods. Like my argument is this: is where is Superman? He could go over to Europe, suck up all that excess water, and then
Mhm.
bring it over to us. What use is he? Is
Well,
he
you know
left
what?
us?
He has indeed.
I
He
won't
has
blame
indeed.
him.
We were talking recently about messages from water.
Mm,
And one of the things that I've taken to doing, because I think it's so very important, is when it rains, I thank the water for coming.
mm-hmm,
And I've begun to thank it for raining, even when it's not.
mm-hmm.
Because it seems to me that since water has its own consciousness and its
Yes,
own life, that if I thank it for being present instead of focusing on the drought,
right.
that I'm calling into being that state that is fulfillment rather than want.
Right. And I say that if all of us for 30 seconds could get on the rain vibe, all that we needed, everybody on the same frequency for 30 seconds, we would get rain, right?
I bet if we could get within 10 points of each other and do it,
Yeah, exactly.
you know.
Yes. I mean, if you
So
think about that, there used to be the rain dances, they put out that vibe and they succeeded in getting the rain a good amount of the time. So yeah, I think we need to be out there kind of in some sort of rain vigil. And obviously, overseas, they need, more of a little bit of a drought going on
you
because
know, I
drainage.
wonder I wonder what would happen. And I am so guilty of it. It has been I have been in such anguish the last couple of days. It's just been really painful. Um, and I have had a hard time until about 20 minutes ago. Yeah, that would be you.
Bless
Until
you.
about 20 minutes ago, even turning my face this far around.
Hmm.
I wonder what would happen if we all got together and
Hmm.
we turned our faces around a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what it's like out there, but I can also choose to believe that the world is full of love and
Yes.
caring,
Yes.
that people are kind, that loving kindness exists for every being and every creature on this planet, that loving kindness exists for the people that I would personally like not to extend it to, and I need to extend it to anyway, and
Yeah.
especially towards myself.
Yes. Well, you talked about 70%, water. Where bodies are 70%
Mm.
water. Now we know that if there's that turmoil or dysfunction or hate towards ourselves are going there, it changes the molecular structure of that water and it cannot feed our organs. And this is why we get disease and breakdown of the body. So if we can nurture our own waters and we can love our own waters and keep our own waters calm, then that is what we're going to exude out to everyone else. And we have a wonderful ripple effect. But we're always looking externally for that peace,
Mm-hmm.
and that peace lies within us. And
Mm-hmm.
if we could just learn to go in, calm our waters down, nurture ourselves, hug our own hearts, feed our own souls, let our own spirit fly in whichever way you need to do it. Music's a big one for me that really helps. Some people
Mm-hmm.
walk out in nature, a giggle of a child, a dog playing with a ball, the
Mm-hmm.
trees rustling, the water lapping against the ocean, the shores. There's always something there that's going to make you smile. Open that smile up. Let it open your heart up. Let it feed the soul and the spirit. Let it feed the body. You can feel the shoulders relaxing. You can feel your body, just everything about you relaxing. You can feel the smile on your face. And if we could get into that state, we'd realize all that stuff that we're worried about is external. We'll get to it when we need to get to it, if we need to get to it. But this is what's really important right
Or
now.
it's in the past and it
Yes.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Carrying it along with you, let it go.
Well, I think sometimes another thing happens. I think sometimes things are deeply etched in our vibrational pattern.
Hmm.
And we may let them go on one round around the spiral, but we come
Yes.
back to them the next time and they demand being let go a different way.
the cellular structure, right? It's the cellular
Hmm.
deep. And as you think you've got rid of it, and all of a sudden it comes back up again. And then people are afraid, oh, I'm back in it. No, you're not. It's just the memory of it is back in it. And it's just another cleansing you've got to go through. Just like we
Hmm.
go through dietal cleansing to clear the
Yes,
system.
yes,
You know,
yes.
this is a cellular memory cleansing that we've got to have.
Hmm.
You're
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
back in it. It's just there to tell you it's another layer that needs to be
That's right.
let
And you're
go of.
looking, it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
The last time I looked at it, I was standing at the 12 o'clock position. This time I'm standing perhaps at the 3 or the 4:30, a little bit higher up. Not that I don't mean higher, but a little bit further
Yeah.
along on my journey.
Yes.
Spiral rather than a straight line. That straight line thinking, that is so old fashioned. It's A, B, stop,
Yeah.
A, B, stop, A, B, stop, A, B, stop, C, D, stop, E, F, stop, G, H, stop. It's all a straight line followed by a grief cycle.
Mm-hmm.
When I finally realized that I could do this, I could think like a slinky is what I call it.
Yes. Yes.
That I was always traveling along those coils, no matter how compressed or extended they were. And of course, I would run into things along them in different places along as I lengthened those coils, because it was simply a different perspective on what I'd been looking at before.
Yeah.
And
You
man,
know,
in my
this,
spirituality, yeah.
well, that straight line, if you think about it, think about the gymnastics on the balance beam, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's us. We're
Well,
in this, we're
ironically,
constantly trying to balance ourselves on this narrow beam and the straight and narrow, and we're not meant to go that way.
and that's the last, and that is the one event that Simone Biles is going to compete in.
Bless her. Good.
And you think about it, maybe I can't do something that requires the level of spatial orientation I've
Mm.
had. Maybe right now, this thing that's going, oh, that's the sweetest thing. I just had my cat stretch her paw, and I'm looking at her pads, and you see those cute little claws come out. It's
Yeah.
sweet. But if I can't do the thing that I have been able to do because my spatial disorientation is
Mm.
still high, I've got the trauma twisties. I can do something lesser that still shows that I'm competent,
Right. Right.
or not
There's
lesser,
nothing
but
less
different.
of than her. Nothing less of. It's that everybody goes through a phase in anything. You've got writers with writer's block. That doesn't mean they're no longer a writer. It just means they have a block at this time. They're meant to go and do something else to kind of rejuvenate and come back fresh. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's just hit her at this timing. And it could be the
Mm-hmm.
external pressures of that she's too good, so we should penalize her, or she's so good, we represent America and she shouldn't be human. I mean, you can't bombard these people at these kind of pressures all the time and
Well,
expect them to
and
excel.
certainly not when your very sport has allowed you to be misused chronically and
Yes,
avoided dealing with things. And
yes,
I mean, not only are all the things you said incredibly right on target, it is also her history being traumatized profoundly by the very sport she's representing.
yes, the people she was meant to trust.
That's correct. Oh, well, here we go again. We're talking about laws of karma. We need to be taking flight, girl.
Yeah. Oh,
Favorite
but
bird.
yeah, yeah.
Favorite bird.
I always say the greatest gift you can give yourself and give another is your vulnerability. But you're giving it in such trust, right? And you really want to know that that vulnerability that you're giving to someone is somebody on the same vibrational plane as you, somebody that really, I will take your vulnerability in trust and be there for you. When that is broken, it's like shattering a glass. It's very hard to put back together.
In traditional Native American ways of being, some communities believe that when something that happens that shatters the soul, the person that has caused this takes the piece of the soul that they've broken off down
Mm,
into the underworld with them. And
mhm,
part of the challenge is retrieving those pieces of soul or self from the underworld, which is done symbolically.
mhm.
And it's it's one of the most fascinating processes I've ever been privileged to help people through or to participate in, because I could see the pieces of me that had been hidden away in dark, vile smelling places.
Mhm.
And to go down and bring those back to the light is very powerful. You don't do that by being a laydown. You do
No.
that by relishing yourself enough and caring for yourself enough and eroding the self-contempt enough that you treat yourself at least as valuably as you'll treat others.
But this is why we do see certain criminals who've done some atrocities and they have been willing to go through that personal therapy of healing and truly are sorry, realize that the person who was doing that at the time was a lost soul, and that whoever they harmed, that they have really shattered that soul, and it's taking responsibility, it's asking for forgiveness, but it's their own personal growth as well. And we're inclined to throw people away when they do something wrong the first
Oh
time.
Lord,
Oh,
yes.
they're garbage, just press the garburator, instead of going, who were they at that time? What were they thinking?
What
Where
had
is their
happened
value?
to them?
What
Yeah.
had
What
happened
had
to
happened?
them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
everybody can heal and everybody can rise.
but that people won't often won't let us do that. And the thing is, if you're relating to me like I'm the person I used to be, you're
Mhm.
out of date.
Yeah.
You're out of date, because although there are still places that I have to go and things that I am continuing to tend to in my own life, I am so much not the person I was.
Yes.
I had
Yeah.
to call somebody out about that last week who was 20, it's a 20 plus year relationship. And she was certain that I disliked one of my competitors and I was going to be mean to them. She's transferring some IP over to them that I've been teaching. And I said, wait, stop. In this conversation, have you heard me say anything derogatory, negative, or punishing about them?
Hmm.
Have you heard me in any way indicate that I think anything less than highly of them?
Hmm.
And she said, and I said, no, wait, please answer my question. She said, no. I said, then please update your perspective.
Right. Exactly.
You're,
Please. Yes.
yeah.
That's old news. Why are you
Mhm.
carrying it around? It's and it's amazing how many people will carry that around for someone else.
Oh Lord, yeah, and drag it
Right?
up as
Yeah.
soon as that person commits a second sin, man, they're done. That's
Yeah.
it. Eternal flames for them. They're out of here.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes. I live with a wonderful 88-year-old whose birthday it was last week, and we've had all week celebrating her birthday. And she's such an exuberant person, and there's something kind of childlike about the joy of life with her. But she has this person that calls her all the time who tells her that she needs to be in a smaller car, she needs to be in a smaller house, she needs this, she needs that. And she keeps saying to this person, please lose my number. I'm happy with my car. I'm happy with my house. I'm happy with my cat. I'm happy. Please lose my number. Thank you for your concern, but no. So it's taken about 6 months for this person to now call her and say, well, as you're not listening to my advice, I'm not going to call you anymore. And it's like, doesn't matter what was said to her. Nothing penetrated whatsoever. Nothing. And it's like she had to come to it herself 6 months later. I think even longer, actually.
Bless her heart. That happens to us sometimes. We're just sure we know what someone else needs, and we'll be happy if they'll take action.
Mm.
Just imagine,
It's not for
I'll be
them, it's for us, right? Oh, we
that's
were
exactly.
right. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a usually a power and control
Yeah.
thing, and we've never had control in the first place. All we've ever had is choice.
Yes. You can help someone make a better choice by giving them a different perspective or showing them another way. But it must be their choice if they're willing to take action or not. All you can
Right,
do is
and
to show them the road. If they want to get in their car and drive it or walk it, then fine. But we can't push them out there and say, you've got to do it because I believe it's better for you.
yeah, and the thing is, we don't know if it is or not.
Right. And only they can know that, whether they participate in it or they feel it. But if they don't feel it and they don't see it, walking it isn't going to make any difference anyway.
That's right. That's right.
People have got to be ready. I mean, there's a huge thing called free will,
Oh,
right?
that
Yes,
again.
yes. And it's like you can inspire and aspire, and you can illuminate, and you can shed light on anything. If people can look up to it and go, that is absolutely wonderful. I would love to do that. And you can say you can, but until they see it themselves, their own free will to believe in themselves and to believe they can, or they want something like it, or it ignites something within them to believe they can take it a path of their own, you can't do anything other than illuminate that light, that road for them. And it must be their free will. Otherwise, it's not really their choice.
And I think the thing that sometimes we underestimate is what the weight of oppression is on their shoulders.
Mm,
Sometimes someone or something else has had its foot on their neck for such a long
yeah.
time.
They don't realize they
It's
can, they're free now.
it is safer to stay in the old than, we prefer the familiar hell to the unfamiliar paradise.
Yes.
And it's interesting once you choose to begin to see what you can do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are no guarantees that you're going to end up rich or famous or any of those things, but there are some guarantees that you can be happier,
Mm.
that you can feel more freedom, that you can feel less oppression, that there are guarantees that you can shift things by the
Yep.
choices you make. And I think, again, I go back to my home area because we had so many fabulous sayings, like you can't walk on water until you get both feet out of the boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this whole piece of looking at the personal transformation that spirituality brings us engages us in getting both feet out of the boat and realizing that even if I sink, I have been on top of the water.
Right.
And the
Yes.
next time, perhaps I will stay on top of the water another moment longer. Or perhaps I will see the stone directly in front of me another second sooner. Yet I think when we start looking at choice making and the notion of what prevents us from being able to go as far as we want to go, as fast as we want to go, I think we're uncomfortable with the idea of being beloved.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is so foreign sometimes because we have come to despise ourselves because we are of a particular race or another race. We have come to despise ourselves because the people in charge have told us we weren't okay,
Mm-hmm.
or we somehow ingested that belief from the sewer systems of the ethers. I'm not sure, but I do know that the amount of redirection it takes to help the mind believe I am a beloved, lovable, beautiful child of the cosmos, to take that and feel it,
Yes.
to do something besides have it stuck
Mm.
here or here is huge. Is absolutely huge because you're aligning all of those major energetic centers and the chakras that may be stuck from previous issues in other lives, or perhaps you drew the bad luck of a fixed astrological pattern that's going to bite you in the butt every 20 years. The thing is, even when you know these things, it is still up to you to say, okay, so I guess I've hit my limit on how much I can love me. And I know that if I'm as much love as the cosmos is, there's plenty more I can get to. What am I willing to do to keep going?
And that big word is participation. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
participate in your own life. A lot of people are waiting for life to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to interact with your own life. You
Mm-hmm.
have to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to happen unless you join the party. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to take that leap. A lot of people are absolutely petrified of the leap. You know, step out into the abyss, blind, deaf, and dumb, and hope that the
Mm-hmm.
universe has got you. I do it that way. That's just the way I'm designed. And I've fallen many, many a time, head first, butt first, you name it, right? Uh, but every time that getting up has taught me something else about myself, right? A different
It
form of
is,
courage, a different form of
yeah,
strength, a different form of knowledge. But if you're not one of the leaper people, and it really is just one toe at a time, as long as something is moving forward, the worst thing we can do is look at stagnant waters. They fester. They attract all the mosquitoes and all the other creatures. Water is meant to move. We are fluid creatures. We are fluidity about us, our energy, our water, our minds, our blood, our oxygen has to be on the move. And we need to constantly be moving forward in some way in order to kind of reach that beautiful peace that we're looking for.
you know what I think about, and it's spirituality piece. It's really key for me. I grew up with what my family and what I called, I think my family probably called it something else. I called it a 55-gallon barrel of mad asshole on my shoulder.
Hmm, that's pretty heavy.
All I knew to be was mad. All
Yes.
I knew to be was just furious all the time, as if it would hurt anybody but me.
And didn't it
Um,
hurt you? Didn't it really hurt you?
Oh, I blew up every relationship on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis about every
Mm-hmm.
other week, and then it stretched to every 3 weeks. Then it was every month, and now I think I've got it down to about 10 years, which is pretty good. And
Yes.
sometimes it's well deserved to blow it up, and it's a good thing. Um, but the other piece of that was that when I began to think about and this was where I could go linear wise, I began to think about scales. That if I did indeed have that 55-gallon barrel weighing one side way down, I wondered if I could add what I could do to add weight to bring it so that there was more balance, just
Mm-hmm.
more balance. I mean, that was just balance.
Yes.
And so I realized it didn't matter in terms of feeling being so dedicated. I mean, I was addicted to my own failure. Sarah, it was
I can relate.
unarguably some of the most miserable times in my life, and my spirituality had been awakened with a large boom when I was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am with this huge spirituality, trying to wrestle it down, and all the adolescent angst and all the crazy of the 20s and 30s, and then it was the 60s and 70s to boot. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I just began to stack tiny choices up on the other side of that scale. And it might be the choice, instead of saying got to or else, to say and or
Mm.
might or could or possible. I want, or instead of saying but, to replace but with and, because when you say it's a great car, but it needs a new engine, it's not that great a car. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Yeah.
What happens if even when I feel like a run over piece of paper, what happens if I'm willing to choose to feel something different and
Mm-hmm.
even just to try it? And I discovered that the more I stacked those little bitty, seemingly meaningless choices, and I never could see the stack I was making, which
Mm-hmm.
was really hard. But it turned out that the more I did that, the less that 55-gallon barrel weighed,
Yes.
or the more the other one weighed.
Yeah.
And I have to say that as far as I've come, I probably still have that far to go again. And I'm so much happier with my life now, with that balance,
Yeah.
with that change in the hue of my own auric field, with that change in my vibrational frequency.
Yeah. I used to self-sabotage. And
Ooh,
it
that.
was, I'm going to sabotage myself before you do. And I felt that
Mm.
was power, right?
I just want
Before
to, I'm going to
before
prove to you
you
that I know
hurt
who I
me,
am.
right? Before you hurt me, I'm going to hurt myself. Yeah.
Oh, I know that one, sister. That's good.
And it's yeah, I blew up every relationship because I didn't trust the love. I didn't believe it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that expectation that everybody wanting you to be something different to what you are. Well, I'm going to be different, so there, and realize that when I crashed, when I took that abyss leap and boom, how come I didn't fly? How come I landed with a heavy thump and I had to get back up again? It's rather like what I feel we're doing right now, 2 steps back. No, darling, that's not the purpose of it. You've got to start again, And it was, I think there were very much there, as you talk about the 60s and the 70s, we were breaking out into liberation, into freedom of expression, into love being that energy, that economy of
Mm-hmm.
of life, and
Mm-hmm.
we were breaking out into that, but we were breaking out against the establishment. So although we kind of had a beautiful flame there for a while, along came the end of the 70s and the 80s and with the hoses and put it out, right?
Hoses. I thought they were airdropping from helicopters to planes.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
least when we had a certain person in office, I'm pretty sure they were.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the thing is that we, with that love and everything else was kind of smoldering inside of us, begging to come back out again, but it didn't feel safe in the environment. So we went back out to, like the self-sabotage. I don't trust you. You're going to hurt me. So, I'm going to either hurt myself or I'm going to, hurt you. So you will leave in case you hurt me.
God, that's so typical. If you've, I mean, I realize I'm a book nerd, but if you've ever read Irving Goffman's work on stigma, the management of spoiled identity, you would know that that is such a normal thing to do. And if you really know much about trauma, you understand that when we are overwhelmed by things and we don't have the mechanisms to cope with them, we either hurt each other or we
Yeah,
hurt ourselves or we just retreat. And
right.
we don't mean to, but it's it's
It's
it's the
all we
only tool
know.
we've got at the. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. God, I tell you, I hate that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is when you are willing to do the work, which, I'm hoping I'm seeing like the younger generation, my kids are in their 30s. I am seeing them on their own self-discovery right now. They're doing the work. They're opening up those channels. They're
Mhm,
willing to go through those cellular levels and let
mhm.
things go. And, I was in my 50s doing that.
Did
And
anybody
it's
teach you how to do that? I mean, didn't you have to learn how to
I
do
had
it?
I had to learn myself. I came
Mm-hmm.
across certain people, like in 94, one woman released 154 lifetimes for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
literally, I would walk into this wall all the time. Didn't matter if I climbed it, went under it, this wall was always there. And she removed those lifetimes. And just for a while there, I was on wobbly legs, like, who am I now? I
Trauma
don't have these.
twisties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it was my own self discovery of who I am now without that wall, with my own choice. And it was another 6 year journey of that self-discovery before I started stepping in myself. And then since then it's been, sometimes a few steps forward and a few steps back. But as you talked about balance and equilibrium, I'm a Libra because I'm always trying to balance things, right?
God, you same
and,
here.
and I really, balance isn't having things absolutely perfect. It's about the constant flow, right? And they're going to go up and down, nice and easy in the flow that you can manage. And you don't want the extremes, so the extreme highs or the extreme
Mm-hmm.
lows.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally, in my kind of late 50s, discovered that. And I have to say, kind of discovered it when I started doing these podcasts. I
Wow,
discovered
that's
my
so
own
cool.
voice, through the voices of others.
It's funny because it began to settle in for me about the same point. I now at approaching 70, not quite, got 2 years to go. I've discovered that I've hit another layer of it, and I'm like
Mm.
going, "Well, isn't this interesting?" You'd think you'd be through this stuff by now, but no, here we are
No,
again. It's
but it's not just this lifetime. It's all the other
oh,
lifetimes that we've
and
had
I
that we're
was
carrying with
talking,
us.
yeah, and I was talking to a woman who's a forensic astrologer who's a colleague of mine, and said, "Look at my chart again. What do you see?" She said, "Oh dear, honey, listen. The first thing I see, and I saw it and told you 20 years ago, and she did, is that Chiron is a place in my life where I will desperately long to be a part of a spiritual community, and every time I try it, it will blow up in my face." Okay, so I've quit trying. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. She said the other thing is that you're going to have one last go around with some things that you've resolved, but still need to be looked at from an additional perspective. And so I just decided the work is never ending. As
Right.
far as I've come, I'll always have that far to go again. And I said, so what's up with this massive amount of stuff I took on this life? Did I choose simulchroma for
Mm.
every life I've ever had? She said, uh-huh. I
Yeah.
said, I was joking. She said, I'm serious.
No, no, this, as far as I'm concerned, this lifetime
This
is
is
the
it.
cleansing of the past lifetimes. And for
Uh-huh.
me, this lifetime, as I've been in this, came to this planet many eons ago, I've now stepped back into my meaningful purpose of what I came here to do in the first
Mm-hmm.
place.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to release all the other lifetimes of persecution, of suppression,
Yeah,
and refined myself in this and my meaningful purpose, and step into my own light without worrying about whether it's bright enough for everyone else, right?
exactly.
Those that are going to
Exactly.
see it, or those are going to see it, and that's all I need to be there for.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that doggedness, that persistence, when we're talking spirituality, if we pursued the love that pursues us with the same
Mm,
persistence with which
yes,
it pursues us,
yes,
it would be a completely different place.
yes.
I wouldn't have to worry about somebody's political party. It wouldn't make that much difference. They could have it and it would all be fine. I wouldn't worry that much about my neighbor and his lawnmower. He could mow and it would be fine. I mean, many of the things about which we hold such impassioned judgments
Yeah,
would disappear. But a polarity based consciousness drives us into thinking good, bad, right, wrong, effective,
right,
ineffective, all the opposites, instead of looking for the complementarities, which are
right,
so important.
right. I'm known now, my son's restaurant, he went away last week, and or the week before, he went over to my daughter to see his little nephew and have
Oh,
some
how
uncle
cute.
time, which of course he
Oh,
was
how
goo goo
sweet.
gaga,
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
melted. And I was looking after the two pups and the restaurant. And I was there 6 days a week, 4 hours a day in the heat. And it's like, I realized this body is quite after, not in the heat. I could do it otherwise, but in the heat, no. But everybody knows me as Tyler's mum. And he said, my mum is your mum. She's
Oh,
everyone's
Lord.
mum here. She's hot. She's here for everyone. And I end up just, how you end up that counseling conversation you have here and the counseling conversation you have there. And it's just, it's what is when it is, right?
That's wonderful.
And it's a lovely place to be. And then, I go down to my little grandson, and as I said before, we had a conversation before he was born of what his purpose is here. And this little boy is only 4 months old right now, and the smile on his face there's just the joy about him, is just such the light about him, and how he's united the family in such a beautiful way. It's that I can feel everybody stepped into a layer of love now. Whereas before, my son was about business and about success and about that. And it's like he realizes it doesn't matter how much money his business makes, he is the success of the business.
Wow.
It is him. His restaurant is Tyler, right? And he realizes that. And he thought, oh God, that's such a burden. I said, no, that's such a compliment. That's such a
I had one of
compliment.
those come across today that made me feel the same way. It was so interesting. Healer reducing crises. It's interesting how it's beginning to catch on here and there. And one of my friends who's a realtor in Nashville got a copy for a friend of hers and she said she was sure that so-and-so had put me up to it. And Mandy said, so this is what I told her. No, this was not Susan's idea. You see, the author's my friend, and she's writing a series of these. She's taught stuff in Hawaii and DC, written secret stuff, manuals for Caterpillar and Saturn, and trained all their personnel. Great artist, cook, and gardener. Lives robustly and yet lives very modestly, and is probably the smartest and funniest woman I know. She has a precious gift to offer, and I'm grateful. I will be buying and giving more copies of this and the sequels that follow.
Mm.
Then, there was the JD Power gig, and everyone was sure she owned the company because her last name's Power or Wonder Woman. I'm saving that.
Oh God,
You know
yeah.
I am.
Oh yeah. I always think, people say, how do you get people to your shows? And I say, well, I have publicists. But most of it comes from referral and
Mm-hmm.
repeat guests,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
people that come back again. And, you look at some people's stories and you think, oh, they're too big, they're too out there.
Mm-hmm.
But when they come to mama's house, they're just one of the kids sharing their stories, right? And that's the way it is.
Yeah,
So no, after 9 years of doing this, I'm not top 500. I'm not this, I'm not that, but I'm solid. I'm rooted. I'm sturdy. This
that's
is,
good.
the orchard of wisdom ready for clicking. And it's there with wholesome people who have done the work, who are sharing the progress, and realize it's lifelong work, but it doesn't have to be work. It's lifelong discovery. Every
That's
day you're
exactly right.
discovering something else about yourself that you could do, or maybe a habit that one, I can let that one go, right? But it's, if we look at it constantly as that self-discovery. If I look, and I'm turning 67 in a couple of months, I look back to when I started this at 57. I do all my own editing. I do everything here. And I knew very little about computers when I first started. And at first, somebody else helped me, and then they said, you're on your own. And I had to learn how to do it. And I'm not wired that way. And it was trial and tribulation. And then I look back and I go, okay, if you could do that, what else can you do? We sell ourselves
Exactly.
short. We
Exactly.
do, by somebody else
Exactly.
saying you can't do. Well, we don't know what we can do until we try it. And we may fail the first time. The first show I did, I pressed all the wrong buttons. It was like a Monty Python skit. Everything went wrong, right?
Look on the sunny side.
Yes, exactly. And the woman said, do you want, because it was all live, do you want to continue? I went, can only get better. And I would have guests disappearing or me disappearing in the middle of a show. It was a wonderful training ground. We don't know the resilience we have, the abilities we have, that tenacity we have until we're tested. So don't be afraid to test yourself.
And it all comes from that inner spark of spirituality that we've each been given.
Yes.
When did you know that that was really your calling? Was it when you were 50 something?
I was 57 when I first started it. The first 13 months I did live shows with someone else.
No, no, I
Um,
mean your spirituality, not your
Oh, my
podcast.
spirituality. No, my spirituality, I was born that way. I was playing with dead people when I was growing up. I was the knowingness person. I could tell my teachers what they needed to know and something they needed to know. I had no idea what I was telling them.
It's
But
almost as if there was no filter between you and the
no,
divine knowledge. Huh?
not then. The
That's the
filter
same
came
thing that
later.
happened for me. Mhm. That
Mm.
was the same thing that happened for me. Lord, I used to get dossiers on things. I'm like
Mm.
going, no, no, I want the cliff notes, not the dossiers. But I come from a part of the country in the United States where there's always a woman who can blow off a wart or rub off a fever or
Yeah,
some old probably Welsh or Irish or Celtic
yeah,
or something. And so it's in a sense I came by it honestly, but I always thought it was normal to
yes,
know when people were going to die. I thought
yes,
everybody could heal by touching or praying. I
right.
thought everybody could, it just seemed ordinary to me. And I have to tell you, the first time I got kicked out of school very young for doing it, I realized it's not, it's, this is, and then I became a dangerous person
Ah, well,
because
I
I
actually
knew too
got, my
much.
mother was a reader as well, and I was a reader, and I got us both doing a fundraiser by doing the readings to raise
Oh,
money
that's
for the
good.
school. So I stepped into some business acronym there.
That's
Um,
good. That's really good. It was
but
the
we
school
definitely
by,
we treated odd, right?
yes. Oh,
Definitely
yes.
odd
Oh,
one.
yes.
Yeah. People
Oh,
drew
yes.
to us, but at the same time drew away from us.
Right.
Mm,
What might she know? Is she
yes,
reading my mind? I
exactly.
used to have a sign on my desk that said, I can read your mind and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, and to go up to someone who's just lost somebody and say, "This is a message from your loved one,"
Oh, yes,
it's
that's yes,
mhm,
yes, yes. Or to be doing a funeral for someone as I was once, and there was her mother who was in the casket as well as right there at the same time. It's like,
yeah,
okay, honey, what have you got to say?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
it's a strange life to live, and now
But didn't you
because
feel at peace with that? I felt it was just so part of me that nothing felt odd. It was only as I grew up that other people started making me feel odd about it.
that's
And,
right.
especially as a young woman, you're a freak, you're a this, you're that. Then you started feeling uncomfortable and questioning everything. But
Yeah,
when growing up, it was just like, well, it's just what I do. I can't help doing it. It's just who I am. And it didn't
that
feel,
was how I
didn't,
felt about
yeah,
it.
it
I
didn't
mean,
feel
it's
wrong,
like
didn't feel anything. It was other
no,
people
no,
imposing
it's
that.
no, it's if this is just I thought this was the way everybody was,
Right,
and it's just
exactly.
part of, but then when
And
they
it
started
is the
calling
only
me
way we can
psychotic,
be.
right? And when they started calling me a witch or
Yeah.
psychotic, I got a little nervous. I got noticeably nervous,
Hmm.
and was not as able to tuck it in as I would like to have been.
Mm,
It's there was it was almost for a while too big a gift, and then traveling up and down
yeah.
the East Coast as a reader
Yeah.
certainly brought that out. And there came a point when it was like, okay, I have to retreat from this level because it has truly become too dangerous
Hmm.
in terms of other people's perceptions.
Yes.
And so for me, that started when I was about 35 years old. And I gradually began to turn towards how do I take the giftedness I have as a reader and a healer and make that so that I can affect, if chosen, more people in less time, which is when I began to speak and train so much. Because literally, when I'm doing a program like I did a keynote for 400 people last week, it's almost as if I see this fabric in front of my eyes that needs to have some threads tied up.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I'm supposed to do. And it's a very interesting experience. But
And do you
uh,
find that when you do those talks that you may have some kind of highlights of where you're going to go, but it's literally the vibe of the audience that
that's
weaves
correct.
that thread. And what I do whenever I'm got a crowd to speak with, I have everybody stand up and take 3 deep breaths and everybody center themselves because I would like to get them as much on a cohesive vibe as possible, because then
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to read the audience. And then I'm on automatic. What comes out of me is a conduit of what needs to come out, right?
Yeah, yeah. That is as it is for me. I only get nervous when people show me videos and there's this light around my head. I get a little nervous. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to turn the glow down. I got to turn that glow down a little bit.
That
Um,
actually, now that's the point. Have you found that your cosmic energy for some people has just been too much?
oh,
That
honey, all the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
all the time. And if I don't manage it, I mean,
yes.
self-regulation is one thing, but if I don't manage it and I'm upset,
Oh, got to freeze.
back in June, my notebook burst into flames at my desk because I was writing a hateful email.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And I was still angry when I left my office and I walked through the house and I blew out 3 light bulbs. So for me, and it may be because my surname truly is power, it's on the
Right.
birth certificate, but I really, there, I have always been for almost everyone too much of something.
Yeah. Yes. They want
And
you. They want you. They want what you've got. And then, no, you're too much.
but I'm here to make a declaration and I want you to hear it. I am enough just as I am, and I am just enough. And let the universe bring to me those who need what I have to offer,
Exactly.
and let the ones who don't need what I have to offer find the people with whom they're meant to be matched.
Amen. Yes. 100%. 1 million trillion
Mm.
percent. Yes. You can only reach those that can hear and see you, because those are the ones you're meant to help. Others that aren't there at that vibrational level, you'll only fry them or scare them. There are other
Right.
people at that level that can help them
Right.
rise up as they're meant to do.
Right.
And that's where I'm at now. It's like, um, I have my shows are very, very different layers. There's
Hmm.
the beginning entry where we're going to be talking about energy and this and that, and it's more about what is spirituality, what is energy, what are
Hmm.
we made of, how do we trust that instinct and that in within us, how do we use it, and then of course we've got shows like this where we're taking
Free,
cosmic flight,
free,
right?
like free ranging chickens.
Yeah. You ain't gonna eat us.
No, but we're going to peck over a whole lot of that backyard and find every seed and bug we can.
Yeah, yes. And I think it's also don't have an expectation on yourself. Can you do this? Can you do that? I can do what I'm meant to do.
Oh Lord, I
That's
used to
it.
say to people, "Do I look like the shell answer psychic?"
Yeah.
You remember the Shell Answer Man, or you might not. In the Shell gasoline company, they used to have the Shell Answer Man ads, and there was always a guy with the Shell logo on his gray shirt. It was the orange and red logo, and he would answer everybody's questions. And so it's saying, I look like the Shell Answer Psychic to you. And it's really been interesting because the less I do, the more I do.
Mm.
I never would have pegged it that way.
And have you
Never.
found also what you do in a different way now?
Very much so.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I may still have the stamina I used to have, but I choose to use my body. Pardon me. I have an elderly cat who's just demanding just a little love off
Well, that's
camera here.
because all that love you've got out there, they
I
want to be a part
know,
of it,
I
right?
know.
I'm surprised I haven't got the cat
But
at the window here.
where I used to work 12, 15-hour days routinely because I could, and for some reason it proved that I was alive and showed people that
Yes.
I was visible. Now I decided, no, I'm not doing that. I get up and I go out in the garden and I take a little walk and come back in, and I might be down at the desk by 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'll work until 5 or 6, or maybe I'll take a quick nap. I
Mm.
no longer have the need to prove that I'm
Right.
superhuman.
Yeah.
I am superhuman. If you haven't gotten that by now, you probably won't get it.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. I don't get up early. For me, nighttime is the activity time, and so for me, I like to get up at 10, because those
well, right,
between
right,
7 and 10 is when I kind of get my deep sleep, right? Because
right,
until then,
exactly. Got
I'm
it.
downloading, right? So,
Yes, absolutely. And my downloads tend to come between 1 in the morning and 3 in the morning.
mhm,
So I keep a regular schedule until I feel a download coming on. I think it must be sort of what feeling pregnant is like. I
mm,
know it's coming. I know I've got to prepare for it. And I know when it comes, it could be messy,
right, right.
And so
But it doesn't have to be painful.
no, it doesn't. No, huh? No, it might be tiresome because it requires more energy than I have. But the other thing I've discovered is that the more physical exercise I get, the easier it is to manage the downloads. It's almost as
Mm,
if, as I've matured, my body needs to be stronger to handle the downloads. And so working out and walking and getting a really strong core have not only benefited my joints, which are a little cranky, it's really benefited my spirituality, because when I say this, I think it feels like it's going to sound funny. I can tolerate the downloads easier.
yeah.
I'm more available to them. And I think my hair is another thing with that. And that's going to sound even funnier. I didn't grow my hair out. It used to be an inch and a half long and spiked. And I was adopted into the Navajo Nation. They said, we love you and we're glad you're here, but there's only one thing we wish, and that is you should grow your hair out. And I said, well, why? They said, well, our holy beings rely on finding you by your hair. The hair is an extension of the central nervous system. And if you grow your hair out, it's easier for them to see you.
Mm,
And I said, okay, I can do that. I mean, 4 grandchildren, 4 daughters, no responsibilities, just love them. That's,
yeah. Yeah.
I'll do long hair for that.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting. I have noticed that as my hair has lengthened, I have indeed become more sensitive. And
Mm,
I wonder, and I began to look up, what about the Samson and Delilah story? How does long hair play? What is kind of that spirituality behind long hair? And there's some interesting studies about snipers in Vietnam, traditional hair, long hair and braid versus haircuts. And the injury rates were much lower for the guys that were Native American snipers who were allowed to grow their hair and wear it as they chose to.
mm,
Um, but my hair, I'm really stunned by that. And it's as much as I'd like to cut it off because it gets so hot. Um, it's interesting to me to see the things that I'm doing both increase my vulnerability, manage my vulnerability, and maybe even decrease my vulnerability in selective ways. Are
Well,
you
like
finding
falling
that?
off ladders.
Oh, that wasn't a ladder. It was a two-step stool. That was just another failed attempt at levitation. They tell me it's easy if you just quit believing in gravity, you know.
Just 2 inches off the ground.
Oh, she's making fun of me. All I was on. I have a bean trellis that I call the teardrop travel trailer because that's what it looks like. It's made out of pipe. And I even built a door and two windows into it. And I was picking beans on it and had to get up on the step stool, which is a two-step step stool. Y'all, I backed right off that thing like it was level ground. And I landed on the ground with a thud on my back. And I laughed and laughed and laughed because I thought, well, pride goeth before a fall. There you go.
Yeah, it's actually funny though because equilibrium, like we were talked about balance before,
Mm,
and I went through a phase of 2 or 3 years where I would have extremely bad falls. I cracked my nose, I had concussion for a year, then I fell
mm,
again and did the same thing, and I've always had an inner balance problem, not just the Libra problem, but the balance problem through high fevers when I was young, so some ear problems. But I have noticed since I moved to Victoria 3.5 years ago, where the soil is just so much more conducive to me, the air, the trees, the water, the breeze, it's just really very good for me, that my balance has been much better because I'm also completely more at one with what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and the way I'm doing it than I was before because I was in chaos. And so I think, balance if we are off balance, if we are getting those twisties as we talked about, that it is a time to kind of indicate of relooking at your life and what's causing
mhm,
that, and
mhm,
and uh, to take yourself out of that vulnerability that's just going to cause you to flop over all the time.
mhm.
These are indicators, and we don't always pay attention to indicators, but we should.
No, no, because it's easy to think, oh, I'm just clumsy or I'm being
Yeah,
stupid today. And if life is in chaos around you, and if your life has had chaos in it, your brain remembers these things and it learns to dampen down your ability to speak without stumbling, and your
mm,
ability to walk without falling, and your ability to do math, and your ability,
yeah,
your cognition and your emotions. It does all of those things in a protective, well-meaning kind of way. But when you find place, and place brings blessing, whether it's physical place or vocational place, then suddenly your brain doesn't need the trauma twisties as
right,
much.
yeah.
It can let go of them,
Yeah.
which
And
is
you kind
good.
of wonder, about Simone with all the pressure on her and all that was going on for her if these twisties were not brought along because of all that stress and just added
Well,
to it. So,
yeah, and she has the added disadvantage of structural racism.
yeah.
To be
Yes.
a black woman, we always expect more of black women. We undercut their pain.
Yes.
We undercut the difficulties they face just because of the melanation of their skin.
Yeah.
Certainly in this country,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, as my
So
88-year-old landlady says, it's just a pigment of the skin. What the hell is wrong with everybody? You know,
well, yeah, and yet it is just a pigment in our skin, and as we move further and further away from a terrifying colonial history, it may be
mm,
easier. But the history of colonization,
yes.
both in north of the in your country and in mine,
Mm,
people carry the epigenetic impact of that, and so race becomes far more than melanation. It
yeah.
becomes culture, it becomes experience, it becomes specific patterns of oppression that
Mhm.
tell you that you can't be visible, that you can't be
Right.
seen, that you don't count. What the heck is there in trauma except being told over and over and over again, you don't count, you can't be seen,
You're
your voice
disposable.
can't.
Yeah.
Yes. And you add that to structural racism, and suddenly you've got a potent and challenging blend.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of the white opulence of the past is over. We now have to share. We have to share this planet with
How's that
all
gone
the
for?
beautiful abundance of color and cultures and races. And, look upon it as a wonderful buffet. And every culture brings their feast to the table. What delights you're going to share. What beautiful cultures are in each one of those dishes. How much we're going to learn about each other, about ourselves through this. Again, let's take the fear ingredient out of it. Let's take the entitlement ingredient ingredient out of it, the opulent ingredient out of it. And let's put community in there, which is the smorgasbord of beautiful dishes, and share with one another. And what a beautiful, happy belly we would end up with.
I agree. And let's begin to celebrate the values that are Afrocentric and indigenous rather than
Yeah.
European. Not
Yes.
that our values have been the best we've had until now, but when you begin to really look at it in terms of health and development, community over individual, yeah, collaboration over coercion and competition,
Yes.
competition in the right place, yes, but not the way we've lived it.
No.
And
No.
all of those values that focus on we over me are much
Mm.
more valuable in every culture. And we've gone so far into the me first, and me too, and me, my, mine, and my truth, that we have lost a lot of the perspective that may have been even more helpful to us.
I think a lot of the problem too is that as white people, we realize we're part of the history, and that a lot of the culture that we took as norm, we're realizing it was wrong, and we're having to realize that things that we may say or things that we may do
Oh,
that
yeah.
are totally unintentional, but have been doctrined in our language, in our persona. And we
Mhm.
need to take a step back and go, okay, anything that could be deemed derogatory or demeaning in any way needs to change. And we need to take ownership of that, right?
Yeah,
And
but
it's not a shame and blame, it's just an awareness and an awakening.
mhm. Yeah, and it's a hard balance to find, to be able to be an effective ally without becoming patronizing.
Yeah.
The people with disabilities movement has gone through this, and it still is.
Mm-hmm.
The lunacy movement's is going through this now. The madness movement, the movement of queerishness is
Yeah.
going through this. It's how do we speak with respect towards each other and maintain some sense of something. I have trouble with the pronouns they, them, and theirs because they're plural.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they are coming to dinner, how many do I cook for?
Right. Yes.
And if they are, if
That's why a
I'm if
potluck is good.
I love potluck,
I
yeah,
love
it's long
potlucks.
holiday. And it's steeped in me linguistically that
Yes.
I don't want to use it, but it is at least singular. I would therefore have to include myself in the itdom. He and she are singular. I need a singular pronoun that is, it used to be, I think ter was the last one I used,
Mm-hmm.
ter. Um, only because how do we have a singular and plural pronouns if everybody's they, them, or theirs? And as a person who's been dissociative and called a person with multiple personalities, it gets
Yeah.
even squirrelier.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, it doesn't matter what race, what culture, what color we are. If we're not part of the bland, we are strange and we're going to be persecuted. You and I, both blue-eyed, gray-haired white people, have had our own persecution for our spirituality, or even for just
Mhm.
being a woman, right?
Right. Oh,
And
yes.
so it is not to say that one is worse over the other. It's that some are more obvious, and
And and
it's
systemic. Yeah. Yeah.
systemic. And the thing is that let us look at each other as I do. I look at everybody from the heart and the soul of them and the character of them. I don't care what package they're in. That's their package. That's the beautiful flavor they bring to the table. But that it doesn't mean they're black, I'm going to like them, they're white, I'm going to like them. It's got nothing to do with it. I look at the heart and soul of a person. And if that heart jumps out of me and that soul jumps out of me and that spirit jumps out of me, I don't care what package you come in. Polka dot, I don't care, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm relating to. If we could stop treating each other from the exterior and start looking at the interior, I think we would find it so much easier to embrace each other.
We might, and then we might miss something though. There's something about the outward and visible signs that alert us to the possibility of cross-cultural experiences.
Mm-hmm. But that experience is also in the inside of a person. Their heritage, like Native Indian heritage, it's very much steeped in who they are from the inside out. Everybody's got a culture in their spirit that will come out. And it's talk to a blind man. They can talk the truth about people so much better because they're not seeing, right? Because they're hearing. We're not hearers, we're not listeners. We see and judge. We don't listen to learn and feel one another. If we could feel one another, we'd feel that culture. And then, oh, yes, the skin is obvious. Or your hair, I love the way you do your hair, what you wear, this or that. We see that. But that, for me, should be on the back of the plate, not at the front of the plate.
I just want it smeared all over the plate, girl. I want it everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want it everywhere. You know, it's an interesting thing, and yet what we all need and what we all want is recognition,
Yes.
affection, acceptance, and love.
I had a young woman on a little while ago who is both black and white. And she said all the way through her life, what am I, black or am I white? And eventually she realized, I'm brown. I'm both. I'm both cultures. And the work that she went into is to go into businesses and institutions and talk the language of brown and not of black and white. How to really address the different dialogues that need to change, rephrasing that needs to happen, because most people do want to change that, especially in business industry, because they don't want to offend. It's just they
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Like, what should I say? What do I say? I don't want to offend anyone, and everybody becomes scared. So if
Yeah,
we're willing to learn, we can change.
there's skills that we just don't have practice in yet.
No.
It's like adding those tiny little choices stack on stack on stack to the other side of my scale.
Hmm. Yeah. uh, and, I love the spirit of people, and to see the spirit in life all around us, and we could step into that joy. If we could look at things like kindness and caringness and
Mm-hmm.
joy,
Mm-hmm.
if we could look at heart and compassion in that collaboration and that community, if we could use those words as the way to address each other, to see each other, to meld with each other, I think what a beautiful community we would all live in, a cosmic community. We are scratching the surface of it. The changes are happening, right? And more, you and I speak out about this to some people who've listened here today. We're talking about things they haven't thought about before, a different perspective, a different wake-up call, a shift in knowledge. All we can do is plant the seeds and keep watering them, keep
Aren't we
nurturing
all
them.
gardeners? We're
We
all
are all
such
gardeners.
gardeners.
We
Yeah.
are. And just let it grow. Let it grow with love. It's not to dictate how it grows, but if you constantly are nurturing with love, with that water of love, with that right heart sunshine on it, it's going to grow in the way it should grow. And maybe we should get out of the dictation of what it should be instead of just concentrating on what we could do at the root level.
I think you're right. I think I think that the more that we can, I don't know. I think I have, there's some expectations that may be helpful to us.
Hmm.
The bulk of them, if we could suspend those and if we could suspend our judgments, we can always have them.
Yeah.
Can I suspend them? I mean, if somebody really wants to order calf's liver and onions at a restaurant that serves them, I won't stop them. But generally speaking, I don't expect to be around that. I don't really
Yeah.
like that. I don't really want that. And I'm not sure I understand why people eat that.
Right.
If I can suspend all of that noise and just say, huh, liver and onions, okay, that's what they're ordering.
Yeah.
I can enjoy them enjoying it if it's good,
Yes.
and I hope it will be.
Yeah.
But I have become sometimes such a fearful old crone, as we all do, that it is so hard for me not to pick up that phone and say, I want you to do what I want you to do
Yeah.
because it'll make me feel better when you do it.
Yeah.
And I rankle when I see that. Do I rankle at myself when I find myself doing that? How often am I willing in the pursuit of love to suspend should, could,
Mm.
should, got to or else, have to, better or else, change instead of choice, the famous butt that I'm sitting on with only one
Yes.
T. How often am I willing to suspend those things and set them aside in a place where they can feel safe while I expand the love? I've tried fighting with them. Fighting
Right.
with them only makes them bigger. I might as
Exactly.
well love them and set them aside and let's say, your time, I appreciate how you've helped me in the past. Take a rest. You've earned it.
Yeah.
Let me think about these things. You'll still be there. They won't take your place. And then I just change the size of the real estate.
Yeah. I mean, all we can be is that beacon of love and light. And when people are ready, remember, they find the teacher when they're ready. And when
That's
they
right.
come to you, that's their free will. And
That's
now,
right.
and if we get out of head and come from heart and soul, what we impart to them is what the heart and soul is need to know. Because if the
Yes.
heart and soul receives it first, the brain will acknowledge it. If we go to the brain first, the heart and soul sometimes is missed out because they're too busy trying to analyze it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speak to the heart and soul. Ignite. This is why this show is called Ignite Your Heart and Soul. When we speak to the heart and soul and we ignite that spirit within them, the head will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And that's wisdom. That's wisdom instead of just knowledge.
Girl, that's like taking a propane torch to a brush fire. It sure will get it going fast.
Yes, it will. And the kind of fire we want, right? The kind of flame of love that we really want. And
May
this is
we ignite the brush fire of love in your heart today.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is, I think I think what both you and I at our sweet young age of our 60s is to understand that all we can be is that
Mhm.
heart, soul, love. All we can be is available for you when you're ready. All we can be is what we're doing to enlighten you. But again, here's the feast. If you're not willing to partake, you're not going to get anything. If you're willing to partake, we don't say you have to eat everything at the table. Start with one dish. Let it fill your stomach with joy. Come back and try another one. We're here for you when you're ready. But you've got to be ready, because if you're not going to hear us. You're not going to feel us, and you're not going to be able to embrace what we have.
And there's something for you wherever you go.
Yes.
If this is if you listen to this and it leaves a taste like library paste in your mouth, it's just a sign to turn another direction. It's one of those redirects we were talking about. It's not that you're on the wrong path or the right path. It is that there's something else for you somewhere that is going to be stronger, more powerful, and more palatable. Find it. We'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. My words and my life will live on a long time.
Right. And the thing is, we might only be the first step.
That's
And off
right.
they go, and they're going to find others on that journey of life that
That's right.
fulfills their backpack full of wisdom, ready for them when they're at that crossroads where they need that knowledge, right?
That's exactly right.
So, you've got people, number one bestseller, the only. And, when I see the only one size fits all, well, we all know that doesn't work, you know, and it's just be yourself. I mean, that's the
Mhm.
greatest advice we could give to anyone. Even if you're in your dysfunctional self, be dysfunctional right now and know that you're dysfunctional. Know that your life is full of chaos. It's got the twisties.
And stop apologizing for it, because the nice thing about chaos is that you always make new discoveries in it. I mean,
Exactly.
here's
Exactly.
the
How do you
thing.
make order out of chaos? Paying attention
Right.
to the chaos.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more you hate where you are, the more you're stuck there.
Yes. And the more you persecute yourself, the more you are going to stay there. You will never find a way out because you're too busy beating yourself up. Acknowledge it. I'm screwed up right now. I'd like to get unscrewed, unraveled. What do I do? And that's
Mm-hmm.
when you start, I go into a bookstore, there's a book that jumps out at me. I've got 2,800 podcasts here. There's a podcast ready to talk to you, right?
Wow.
Be willing to explore. Listen and learn and let it penetrate. And it's not going to hit you the first time. You're going to need a few tastes of that dish before you acclimatize to that palate, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
I have to put the fan on. I'm boiling.
Oh, honey, it's getting hot in the kitchen. You sure gonna jump ship now? You
Just
can't
need
stand the heat. Stay out of the kitchen. That's what they
just put the
say.
fan on and then the heat goes,
Okay, all
right?
right. Good for you. Where's my funereal fan?
I think this is the thing that we need to look at in life, is that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to go, I come from dysfunction. It's okay to say, my life is in chaos. It's okay to say that was a wrong choice. But it's look at where you're at and go, okay, this is where I'm at. What can I do? What step can I do? What step am I willing to do to start unraveling, and don't look like it's going to happen. Like our previous show on chaos and crisis, and the books that you're writing, it's not about, the having all the answers right now. It's about willing to explore the problems so you can start seeing what solutions you have to it. And there is always a solution. So your book, Healer, Reducing Crisis, right? And the whole work that you do in reducing crisis, we're all in a crisis of some sort, but we can reduce that. Even in
That's
our
right.
harmony, there's always chaos around us.
And we can get used to having less of it. I mean, I think it
Yes,
really is. If there are some people for whom the only answer might be therapy and medication, for
right.
many, 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 many of us, including some of us who've done a lot of that,
Yeah.
the three skills that we teach in Healer Reducing Crisis are the foundations.
Mm-hmm.
They're the things that if we learn when we are very, very small in a place where we are able to learn them, life is a lot easier for
Yeah.
us. And I don't know too many people who get the struck blind on the road to Damascus miracle that Paul got, if you'll
Mm.
pardon me for using a traditional analogy here. Most people have to make little choice on little
Yes.
choice.
Yes.
The thing is if we know that being able to manage our feelings is so critical, and it not only helps us with our friends and our social lives, frankly, for me, learning how to self-regulate, even though I still fall off the wagon
Yeah.
sometimes, has helped me manage my spirituality. It's
Yes.
made me a better channel. And
Yeah.
learning to look at those inner connections that I can call on when I'm feeling wiggy or when I've got the trauma twisties,
Yes.
to remember the people that are sturdy that stand there with me and for me, to remember when I look across my office at all the stories and all the things that people, that text I got, to
Yes.
look at those and to let myself feel the good feelings that come up. It doesn't necessarily stop the despair that I run into periodically,
Mm-hmm.
but it sure makes it more tolerable.
Yeah.
And then looking at my strengths, I don't know if your audience knows this, but if you go out to authentichappiness.com, authentichappiness.com, positive psychology is the one thing that's given me a great deal of hope lately. Because they're looking for the good things. Those are assessments that are being normed and reliable to find out what are your strengths, what are your leadership characteristics, what are the positive things about you that you can begin to fortify yourself with so that you can face the things that are uncomfortable.
Right.
This just makes sense to me and
Yes.
always has. And that's what we try to do with everything we do in Healer Reducing Crises, is help people equip themselves with sense making tools that makes it easier to go through the discomfort of expanding the self.
And you're not going to please everybody. And some people you're going to make feel uncomfortable just by your presence. Some people
Yes,
you can turn the volume up on because they're ready to receive it. Some you've got to dampen it down. That
right.
doesn't mean you're any less. It doesn't mean that you're a problem. It just means in that company, they can't take the higher vibration. So come at that lower frequency, not low, low, but turn it down a bit so that it doesn't become too much. And then maybe that frequency is something they can travel. Um, please don't beat up on yourself. Oh, God, I've done enough of that for a few lifetimes, right?
All it'll
It's
give you is it'll only give you carpal tunnel and rotator cuff
and yeah,
tendonitis.
and concussion.
Yeah,
So being there, done that, done it enough for a number of you. All right,
yeah.
and what I'm finding so absolutely wonderful is seeing how many 30-year-olds now are going. I know my own kids going through some past traumas. Because they came from a dysfunctional relationship. So they're going through those past traumas and they're not putting it at blame and shame. They're understanding where the triggers are. They're understanding where the anger comes from. They're understanding why that has such an effect on them and therefore healing it and letting it go.
And see, we would be helping them learn how to make their own positive triggers.
Right. Yeah,
And we
exactly.
would, I mean, it's the thing is every single thing that we see that comes about as a result of trauma, the tendency to be reminded of difficult, overwhelming, negative events at the drop of a hat. Guess what? You can build being positively affected by events at the drop of a hat if you choose to.
Yes. And
And it's just
simple
like the
ones.
people at yeah,
Simple
the
ones.
folks at the Olympics, they could never have gotten this far if they hadn't developed those positive triggers along with their painful reviews of their tapes of what they've just how they've just
Right.
performed.
And
Can
it's
you imagine being that high diver who who just walked off the board. Bless her heart. It was terrifying. I mean, she just her rhythm was off, and she did a total flop, and she was favored.
Yes.
And to look at that must be the most embarrassing and difficult thing of her life. But her response was, "Well, there's always next year."
Yeah.
I did the best I could. My timing was off. It was a mistake. I'm going to do a retake.
Yeah. Exactly. And look at the athletes with 100th of a second miss out on a medal. And it's like,
Uh,
as far as I'm concerned, you've got the medal for giving your best.
and
And
then there were the guys who came in at the same time and decided to share it.
right, I don't know that one. Which one is that one?
Oh gosh, it was pole vaulting.
Oh wow, good
Yeah,
for them.
yeah.
Bravo.
And then
That's
then there
team
were the
spirit.
fellas in the track in one of the track events who were both well thought of, who fell and who helped each other to the finish line.
Now that's
I mean, there
compassion.
are there are extraordinary acts of kindness
Yes.
being shown at the Olympics
They're
that
that
we
kind of medal for that compassion to
right, and we
sacrifice
missed
your
the
own.
fact, right, that Simone Biles, who's been reviled by a good number
Yeah.
of people, helped her teammates prepare and win medals,
Hmm.
even after she'd made the difficult decision that she was not physically able in terms of her safety because of what was going on in her head
Right.
for whatever reason. She still helped them win. She
Yes.
showed leadership, not cowardice.
Right.
And she shows it to herself internally as well. And
Yeah.
that's what's critical. As
That's also
within, so
what's
without.
healing for her too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's, any country that looks upon their athletes that have fallen, and as the shame and blame, you've let your country down, shame on them. Because anybody that is there, that's given their best under extraordinary circumstances, um, and they've given their all, and maybe their all was not what it was meant to be that day. It
yeah,
doesn't matter. They've given their all. Let us congratulate them for that, because look at the years and years and years of preparation to get there.
yeah. That's the Olympic spirit. The Olympic spirit is not petty or tyrannical. It's interesting to see how the games are playing out this year and what life lessons it brings us,
Yeah.
especially in spirituality.
Yeah.
Being held in a country that is so old and has such a long history of spirituality in different ways, although the Japan and China are enemies to each other, to see the threads of the belief systems of Buddhism, loving
Yeah.
kindness in particular, showing up in so many ways is remarkable. Is
We had the
remarkable.
Olympics here in 2010, the Winter Olympics, and I remember being
Right.
down on Robson Street, and there were like 3 coffee bars in one corner, and you would see like the Russians and the Americans hugging each other in the same, from the same thing, and it's this like, when they compete, it's on the field, so to speak, and when afterwards, it's that they were all Olympians. They all
That's correct.
understand the gift of being an Olympian, and they were all there patting each other on the back and this and that. Great run, great this, great that, and it was that spirit of that camaraderie that was just intoxicating. It was beautiful to see,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's how we should be as human beings, folks. If we stepped into that camaraderie and that compassion of wanting to push each other or help each other up when we fall, if we could show that, we would realize we're all gold medal winners, right? We would all be in a better place. I mean, it's very easy
We
when
would.
I got sent a video today that I mistakenly opened, and it was just full of hate. And I don't think I even gave it 30 seconds, and it was enough. It was just enough to shatter me. And it was just the venom coming out of this. And it was, anti-Facebook and anti-vaccine and anti-everything else. And I'm so sick of the antis. And it's like, if you could give me something rational and logical of why you feel that way, or your proof behind it, then I will listen. But if you're spewing, vomiting, hate, and
Watch out now, you're becoming
I know,
anti-anti.
I know, it gets me riled up. It does.
You
I
need to
have
go
to
out and
I have
take
to
a big
watch it.
long walk.
Yes, I switched it off and put something cute on, like animals. That would always warm my heart. And that's another thing you see animals suddenly becoming mothers to other species of their babies because the mother died, and odd animals that should
What if
never
they've
be
been doing
together.
this all along?
Oh, they have. We just have only been capturing it by camera now. And the sexiest people in the world are those that rescue animals and children. As far as I'm concerned.
It's easier to get in a home to rescue an animal than it is to get in a home to rescue a child.
I know. Oh, I know. It's horrific. I've actually got one tomorrow on a child that went for a foster home, and it was. I've got a book series coming up on the Forgotten Children series where people are contributing a chapter to to the situation of how we are letting our children down. And we have to expect a dysfunctional society because look at the way we're raising our children. And we've got to rethink this right down to the very core, to the very stem. We have to
It will
rethink
take
this.
generations.
It will, unfortunately.
I mean, unfortunately, we can't just stop everybody from having children for a period for time out while we figure out how to do
Yeah.
this better.
No, we can
But
just
I
hope
mean,
that that the more we pour love and ignite that love and soul in each of our young people, of our millennials and younger, that they will then pour it into their children. But yeah, it's going to be a long time. You know, we may not be around to see it, love, but we'll watch. We'll send our light.
that's exactly right. From
Yeah.
my stardust to your stardust, let's
Yes.
do it.
Yes, a lot of sprinkle of dust going to be going on. And I think
Hat
we're,
you, hat
yeah,
you.
yes. I think this is actually what, when we think about that, that is actually what we're getting from the universe right now. We're getting a lot of beautiful, loving stardust coming down. How many people
Well,
are waking up being conduits now and channelers that never knew they were before? It's just so many more people are opening up to that. And it's not in mainstream media, so we don't know how much it is. But again, doing all of these shows for all of these years, how many people have woken up to that divine, meaningful purpose? And it's beautiful to see.
the other thing is how many of us have been out looking at the Perseids lately?
Sorry,
This
I
is
missed.
The Perseids meteor shower
Right. Mm-hmm.
peaks on the 11th of August.
Right.
And it's a wonderful time to be out looking at the meteors and looking at that are the shooting stars that we're seeing that are literally bringing literally and symbolically more stardust to us,
Mm.
and seeing how those fit in. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. I've been out a couple of nights in my backyard and seen 5 or 6 different
Mm.
shooting stars, which have such, they are considered on the one hand auspicious in a good way and auspicious in another way. It's just fascinating to see how we are beginning to shower ourselves differently.
Yes. Yes. And it. Um, if we could just go back to simple nature, the beauty and the simplicity and the complexity that is so simple and so
Mm-hmm.
logical. And we
Mm-hmm.
look at how everything is integrated with energy. It's all about that positive energy. It's all about those good vibrations. And
Mm-hmm.
many years ago, my show's music was good vibrations until I wasn't allowed to have it anymore. But,
Yeah.
but good vibrations. And that's
Yeah.
really what
Yeah.
it's about. We can
Yeah.
step into the good vibrations. And for me, that's why music is so important, because it does change the frequency of
Uh-huh.
of our heart and
Mm-hmm.
soul and the way we think. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to find that something that is our sanctuary, our space that we go to, that kind of resets us, that calms us, that centers us, and where we can then come back out and look at things in a different way. Because if we feel our wobblies, or we feel that there's something that's kind of shattered us, go somewhere where is healing for you, and only you know what that is,
Mm-hmm.
right? But somewhere that's healing for you, that will reset you so that you can come back out again in better
That's right.
balance.
And some of the ways I encourage people to think about it is: are you an iguana or are you a salamander? Do you need dry heat or do you need cool, warm, cool, wet?
Right.
I'm a salamander. Um, so when I think of myself as a salamander, then I ask people to think about: do you need company or do you need solitude?
Yes.
And then when you begin to ask yourself the questions along those axes, you begin to realize, where do I need to go? Is it a time in your life when you can fiscally afford to take off, or do you need to stay put?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I need to stay put, and there are select state parks that I can drive to, and I can take a hike in, and I can find my salamander spot.
Yeah.
And so looking at all, or is this something where this is purely an inside job and I need to go into my heart
Yeah.
and do the work?
Yeah.
And can I do that where I am physically sitting, So it's an interesting thing when you're looking at how do you help people do that?
Right. And discover what it is that does it. You know, if I'm sitting, headphones on, it's music. If I can get out, it's right by the ocean with a beautiful breeze and the sea air, you know, coming up and just blowing everything away. Clarity, just, you know, everything kind of coming to the surface and all that's not serving being blown away and
Mhm.
seeing the trees rustle and speak to me. That's really resets me. But we all know what it is. We all know what it is that brings us joy. And it is good for us to go and spend more time there.
It is. It absolutely is. How can you resist spending time in joy? Only if you're terrified of joy's presence in your life. And if that's the case, give yourself credit for being willing to look at that.
Yeah.
Look at it in the eyes, smile at it, and say, I'll take in as much as I can, thank you. And I'll walk away from the banquet when I've had all I can tolerate. And the next time you come back, you'll be able to tolerate more.
Yeah. Bit by bit. Life is bit by bit. We didn't get where we are by taking the group
Mm-hmm.
huge leaps, not without falling, right? Having to
Right.
get back up. It is that wonderful gradual embracement and absorption. You know, as human beings, we can only absorb so much at a time. And you know, here's my beautiful ocean that comes up, my epitome of
Wow, there you
water,
go. Yeah.
trees, and
Yeah.
breeze. Yeah. The place I would love to be. Whoops. Oh,
Yep,
I
you're
thought I
there.
lost you there. That's, yeah, this is, you know, what feet in the water and the breeze in my hair and just, yes, lovely. We all got that place. We know what it is. And I'm too busy. No, take time, make time. Because if you don't, time will take you.
That's exactly right. Do you remember those old invisible collars, invisible leashes for dog, invisible dog leashes? They were a wired leash. They had a wire all the way down the leash and all the way around the collar, and you'd walk around with an empty collar.
No,
You were walking your invisible dog.
I don't know those ones though.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can find one and send it to you. But they were quite the thing here a long time ago. And I always used to think sometimes my emotions were on the back end of that leash, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I was on the back end of that leash.
Mm,
And the more I began to realize my emotions are powerful and they're valuable,
yes.
but the more I began to get on the back end of the leash so that I could walk them and exercise them and feed them and care for them,
Mm,
the less likely they were to jump me like that.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is always solutions. There is always answers, whether it's an itty bitty or a lot. It's there is always something out there that's going to help you move forward
Oh,
when
yeah.
you are willing to participate
Absolutely.
and partake, right?
Absolutely.
We do not have to stay in the pain. Having
No,
said that, how do people, I invite people please to go back and listen to the other show where we do talk more about, you know, reducing the crisis. How do people get hold of your book? How do people get hold of you?
you are so kind. Thank you so much. You can go to thehealerseries.com, thehealerseries.com for the book. And if you'll go to elizabethpower.com, you can reach out to me there, or you can email me at info@tiatrs.com.
And of course, you're on Facebook, Elizabeth Power
Oh,
on
Lord,
Change.
yes.
And
Yes, I'm on Facebook, Elizabeth Power on Change, and I'm on Twitter, ePower953. I'm around. I'm
right.
generally,
And you've
I'm
got a
easy.
podcast coming up sometime in the future.
I do have a podcast coming up in the future, the Power Garden, which will be talking about issues of healing and power, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm hard at work on our new book on on context, reframing, and then the third one on claiming culture. And I'm so excited to say we just launched today. I'm sorry, I've been looking down, but I've kind of been watching to see what's happening. We are turning on our new the traumainformedacademy.com site today, which gives people access to over 130 lessons. We've
Mm,
got about 50 of them up right now, delivered one a week, to help you take a look at the things that are important in recovering from trauma and boosting your emotional intelligence, which brings you better relationships, better success at work, more money, more happiness, and more. So there.
yeah, yeah. And let's face it, there's virtually nobody walking this earth that hasn't at some time gone through some form of trauma.
Yeah. Gaslighting, domestic
Yeah.
violence, being bullied, natural disaster, car wreck, physical stuff. We don't
Parents
care what it
divorcing,
is.
somebody
Oh,
dying,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
even having to move around a lot, constantly changing friends. There's always
Mm,
something there. And we don't realize how it sits there and festers
mhm,
until we
mhm,
face it and release
mhm.
it.
Yes, yes. While the world conspires to keep us separated, all we crave is connection.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, one of my wonderful guests did a lovely song, 1 Million Hugs, and she called it the COVID recovery song, 1 Million Hugs. We just all just want to get out there and hold each other, heart to heart, right? That connection on, how it feels when something you love, or just that hug in your arms, and how it feels. Oh, yes. Hug, hug.
Please hug, 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 hug. And please wear a mask when you're close to each other and make sure you've been vaccinated. The
Yes.
Delta variant is a tough one.
Yeah.
And in part, one of the reasons it is so tough, folks may not understand how viruses work, but the fact that most of us got vaccinated, but not all of us got vaccinated,
Hmm.
gave this virus an opportunity to mutate and become even more dangerous.
Yeah.
It is as it is as contagious as chickenpox, moms.
Right. Yeah,
Chickenpox.
yeah, and as deadly, or even more deadly than that. And it's also hitting the young. As the young thought, oh,
Yes.
I'm young, I'm fine. If I get it, I'll be over it. But no, it's literally killing the
Well,
young now.
it's also the 10th cause of death in children under 12, children who are too young to get vaccinated.
Mm,
And I understand why people have been hesitant to get vaccinated. I really do. Some of it is just a lack of knowledge. Some
yeah,
of it is in sheer individualism. Some of it is nobody's going to tell me what to do,
you're
which is
right.
back to sheer individualism. But it's time to think about your neighbors. It's time to
Yes.
think about the respect that we're and the disrespect we're giving medical providers. I
Mm,
remember polio, and when polio came around, we all lined up and took our vaccines. And we did it knowing that there might be problems with them and knowing
right,
that there might be some long term risks because anything beat an iron lung.
right.
And it's time to step up and do the same thing.
Well, when
There's
we look at
no,
the facts, of those that have been vaccinated around the world and how the numbers have gone down, and where the numbers have gone up, they've gone up amongst people who are not vaccinated, right?
yes. The other horrifying news that we need to keep in mind is that those of us who've been vaccinated may also carry the Delta variant and give it to others, which is why
Hmm.
we need to mask up.
Yeah.
The safest way to live temporarily, and I have to say, I'm really grateful because my asthma and allergies have been a lot better, is to wear
Mm,
a mask. It's not going to kill us. It's not going to affect our breathing. Most of the people who say it affects their breathing just don't want to wear a mask. I understand that. But you know what? You're my neighbor
yeah.
and I love you.
Yeah.
And if I love you, then I need to be as protective of your health as I am of my own.
I mean, look at the flu season last year. It went down because twofold. One, masks, and the other, people stayed home. And in the last 20 years, I don't care if you're sick, you're coming to work. And then everybody gets the flu. And it disrupts the entire work thing. When now it's like, you're sick, stay home. We don't want you, get better. And now we're not seeing that spread. And I think when it
Right.
comes to flu season, back to mandatory masks, most certainly in the workplace, if you're working back in the workplace. And if somebody shows any signs of sickness, home.
I think it can make us either a much meaner or a much better society and
Mm,
culture. It can make us much meaner if we use that as an opportunity to keep firing people. Although people are firing themselves a lot these days, and some are choosing not to go back to work. We've got the eviction crisis coming up
oh,
because the
yes,
moratorium ran out. And there are so many jobs, and people are unwilling to work in crappy workplaces
right.
that are really, really awful. And you know what? It's about time.
Well, that's what they're saying. They're going to have to pay more. They're going to have to make workplaces better. There are so many people saying, I don't want to come back to work. I don't have to. I can work from home just as well. And the whole workplace is being shaken up and shifting right now. And that's okay as long as it's for the better.
Right, right. And human nature being what it is, there'll be moments when it's probably not.
Right. And also, we seem to love resistance, but I keep saying resistance is futile. The flow is taking us this way. And if you want to go up against the wind in your face all the time, then, you're going to get blown over at some point. So,
Girl, mm. My mama used to say that if reincarnation was a reality, I must have been a salmon that didn't get to swim upstream.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Okay. We're certainly having problems with that. With the drought, there is no water for them to swim up at the present
Yeah,
moment.
man,
So,
I tell
yeah.
you. Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
You know, that's another story. You know, when we look at our planet, we're so disrespectful of Mama, and I don't blame Mama kicking our butts because we have taken her for granted for so long. And if we could have respect not only for ourselves, for each other, and most certainly for this beautiful planet that she's given us, you know, harmony is achievable. But you have to work on it, you have to participate, and you have to stop just thinking of I, me, and myself and start looking at as how, I, in my instrument, can come to the orchestra of life and create harmony.
You know, it's a funny thing because I think it is challenging to think about the fact that the robin in my backyard is as deserving of life as I am. How dare I
Yes.
poison the soil?
Yeah. Mm.
My plants, I'm a murderer. I eat. And if I
Mm-hmm.
eat, beans die, tomatoes die, onions die,
Mm-hmm.
carrots die. Everything I eat must, I kill everything I eat.
Mm-hmm.
And when we begin to look at the circle of life as being that large, as
Mm.
difficult as it is, even that, my respect for those things, my respect for other people influences my respect for my planet, my willingness to look at the life cycle that minutely, that even the sow bug or the pill bug that's actually a shrimp in a costume, that roll the roly poly, even that little creature serves a tremendously
Yeah.
important purpose. Why would I want to make my yard sterile of insects?
Yeah.
Who am I hurting? I'm hurting everything else that uses that yard for its life.
The ecology is brilliant. If you look at the entire system, whether it's annoying to us or not, and I admit mosquitoes are annoying,
Oh
but when
yeah.
you look at it, it's all got a reason. The complexity of it and the simplicity of that complexity is just utterly amazing. And who are we to interfere with it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. We, I remember my mother back in the 70s. I didn't really understand the significance of the book until maybe 2 or 3 years ago. My mother gave me a copy of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring as soon as it came out. And I think, as I think back now, I make up that it was my mother trying to find a connection with me because we were very disconnected. And I didn't understand it. I just didn't understand what in the heck that woman was talking about. And I woke up about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, realizing, oh my God, Rachel Carson was talking about there being no birds,
Mm, mm-hmm,
there being no insects,
mm-hmm,
there being no frogs.
mm-hmm.
And when that realization hit me some, what, 40, 50 years later, uh,
And look
it
where we are right
was
now.
it was revolutionary because it caused me to choose to make my garden and my yard a place where all creatures are welcome.
Yeah,
I say this with gritted teeth and bated breath, even the feral cats that sometimes eat the birds.
right.
We've done this, not the cats. It's not their fault. I'll do my best to make a cat resistant or cat safe place for them to fly and to eat.
Mm-hmm,
But how can I be that mad at the cats? They didn't ask to be here.
right,
That's irresponsible owners that chose not to get them neutered and spayed and then turn them out.
right.
So I think I think that one thing of that book so many years ago. May we
And
all
the
spend.
impact of what it meant came to you at a time when you were ready to receive it, right? That's, you know, and understand it is, you know, just because something was revealed to you at a time that you didn't quite get doesn't mean you dismiss it. It's put it on the back burner. One day that will
It's
be, ah, now I get it.
it stayed there that long.
Mm-hmm.
It stayed there that long. But I'm with you. I think if we each took the opportunity to spend even 5 minutes in just focusing on love
Mm-hmm.
and compassion for each other and the planet all at once, that meta meditation that the Buddhists do. 5 minutes on seeing the planet green and healthy, and the rain coming and watering the earth, and the plants growing and giving off,
Yes.
sucking up. I think if we just saw those things and lived in the glory of them, saw them whole instead of
Yeah.
injured, I think we'd be a lot better off.
Yes. Sometimes Facebook goes, what would you like? What's the one thing you would wish for the world? And for me, it's always everybody knows love. Because simply if everybody understood love, they would understand what a gift it is, what a responsibility it is, what a treasure it is, and what energy it is in every single living thing in this entire universe. So it may be
Mhm.
corny, but love does make this world go round.
It does indeed.
So, on that note, my darling, we shall let people lovingly go.
Yes, yes. And thank you all for being with us today. And thank you for allowing me to be here.
Yeah, always. And you're going to be back again. I know you're
Oh,
going to be
good. Oh,
a
good.
repeater for sure. Always love your energy here, and it always lifts me up. And I was looking forward to this one today. As I said, I was feeling that. And completely turned it around, which is wonderful. And that's
Good.
the point, isn't it? If you're feeling angst about something, or you've got that energy, call a friend. A friend that you can go, you know what? I've just got to get some bitching off my chest, and then let's have a laugh, right?
Absolutely.
And then,
Absolutely.
get it off your chest. You're not meant to suppress it. Get it off. It's not directed at anyone, it's just directed at. And then have a good laugh, and it's,
Absolutely.
bitch fest together, and then a good old laugh about life
It's the
because,
birth of a bitch. And
and
then have a good, yeah, yeah.
laughter, right? Laughter's so important. At
It's
ourselves, at life, at everything, have a damn good laugh. It's a really good, healthy release. It's good for your health. It's good for your psyche. It's good for your spirit. And after you've had that good belly laugh and you're almost out of breath,
oh, excuse
it's
me.
like
Yes,
you're ready to go forward again. So, yeah.
absolutely. And you can laugh at anything, anytime. In fact, somewhere on the internet is a video of me collapsing in laughter just because I could at a speaking engagement
Hmm.
and watching people be very nervous and joining right in.
Right, because it's intoxicating. You're laughing, you don't know what they're laughing at, but you're laughing at them laughing, and then everybody else is laughing at everybody else laughing, and then next thing you know, everybody's laughing. They don't know why, but my God, do they feel good?
And that's the same thing we can do with love.
Absolutely. One drop in the ocean makes a difference. If all of us put in one drop, right? Look at the difference we can make. Nobody's asking you to fix everything. We're just asking you to contribute, right? Thank you, my love.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, darling.
once again, yeah, your site is elizabethpower.com, and Facebook, Elizabeth Power on Change, and your podcast coming out soon. And the book is Healer Reducing Crisis on Amazon. And please go back and listen to her other show, which we do talk about crisis and stress and all of that, which every single one of us has felt or feeling or wants to get rid of. Emotion is something that is there in our lives for a reason, but we don't want to become emotional about the emotion. We want to release, right? So find something to laugh at, get up and dance, have a glass of wine, and just embrace life. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Always
Thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much.
Until
More
next time,
soon.
folks, much love to you all.
Much love.
Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. You will hear many, many shows here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. We have new shows for you out every week. Just find them on our podcast or What's New. If you feel that you have something to share that makes a difference in the lives of others, or you too feel that you could be a host, please contact me at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com, and we will be glad to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.